It is now 7 p.m. and I would like to start this meeting. I'm Councillor Lynn Worrell. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council's website. Apologies for absence. Rhiannon, have we received any apologies?
No.
Thank you very much. Item 2, minutes. I move the minutes of the Cabinet meeting of the 22nd of July 2025 to be approved as a correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes?
No.
Nobody? No. Okay. Item 3, I have not agreed to any urgent items of business. Item 4, does anyone have any declarations of interest to make? No. Looking around? No. Item 5 is statements of the leader. I don't have any statements for the meeting tonight. Item 6, briefings on policy, budget and other issues. None. Item 7, no petitions have been submitted to members of the public. So that moves us swiftly on to item 8, questions from non-executive members. Some questions have been submitted from non-executive members in relation to the local government reorganisation report. And I will propose that they are dealt with at the time of the substantive report at item 12, when item 12 is considered. I will move the agenda items around so that this item will be the first substantive report to be considered, so that those members with questions are free to leave after their questions have been answered. A question has also been received in relation to the asset disposal retail parade disposal report, which is the last report on tonight's agenda, and it will be considered then. Item 9. I am not aware of matters referred to the Cabinet for consideration by an Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to save for the free briefing notes from the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which has been published online. They relate to devolution report, the local government reorganisation report and the corporate and improvement plan reports. I propose that these will be dealt with the substantive reports when they are considered at item 11, 12 and 13 of this agenda. That swiftly moves us on to item 10, delegated decisions since the last meeting. A list of the delegated decisions taken since the last meeting is provided within the agenda. Item 11, which is local government reorganisation. That is my report. So there is a briefing note that has been provided from the Overview and Scrutiny that considers this item, and this has been published online. Questions from non-executive members will be asked after the item has been presented. So I'll move on to the report now, which is the proposal before you has been developed following months of discussion, debate and engagement, including with Thurrock residents through the summer programme, online and in-person events. I'm pleased that we have been given a voice to the people of Thurrock. Taking this opportunity means that we can put a coherent and comprehensive alternative to government, one that doesn't compromise on financial stability, is value for money and keeps decision-making close to communities at its core. Our role in shaping these plans is a privilege, but also a huge responsibility. I have lived in Thurrock all of my whole life and I care deeply about its future. We must make sure that we maintain what makes this place what it is, but also embrace the future and address the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. We must create a system that drives prosperity for all and continues to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. We must step forward and think afresh what local government can and should be for the rest of the century. In this proposal, you will see 4 unitary authorities with equivalent populations of around 500,000 and all shown to be financially viable. Each authority will benefit from a major point of entry, either a port or an airport. Each authority will benefit from the expertise that one of the existing upper tier authorities, Thurrock, Southend and Essex Council, offer. This will help ensure that the excellent standards of public services will continue. We will keep the new councils close to the public by establishing neighbourhood area committees, giving a forum for local residents to express their needs. I want to thank officers for the incredible amount of time and work that they have put in to develop this proposal, including the engagement that they have facilitated throughout the summer to listen to the voices of our residents. I am thankful to the members who have provided feedback and engaged in the multiple scrutiny committees and cross-member working group or at the all-member briefings. I am also thankful for the members who actively took part in the January and March Cabinet meetings in which all members were invited to debate these issues. Members will be invited to join an additional briefing to hear more about these plans. This will take place in the coming weeks. Members will also have the opportunity to publicly debate the merits of the proposals being submitted to government ahead of the government's own consultation. This meeting will take place on the 1st of October. I have previously explained why I felt it necessary to put an alternative option to the government, and I won't rehearse those arguments here now. But I will say that more than ever, I believe that both the 5 unitary and the 3 unitary model do not offer the right balance for the future of local government and the people of Essex. It would be wrong as the leader of this council to not ensure that the government had a full range of proposals to consider, which they could then consult on before ultimately deciding. I am aware that other proposals have backing of other councils in Essex, and ours doesn't. But local government reorganisation is more than a popularity exercise. It's about looking to the future across the complex landscapes and being bold. Following my travels across Essex and having spoken to many leaders, it's clear our proposal is credible. And I continue to be convinced that our 4 is the right model. And having heard other leaders' feedback, I am convinced that the government will also see the merits of our proposal too. I welcome questions and comments from council members, and I will then invite cabinet members to take a decision as to whether to submit this proposal to government. I'll take that. So I will now take questions, and I'd like to invite Councillor Spate, if you come to the middle table, and ask your first question, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will just read the question because it's not really about making statements.
No,
so,
absolutely.
do you not think it would now be appropriate to pause and reflect, given the lack of support for our proposal and the danger that by not supporting the next best option for Thurrock, we could lose out?
Thank you, Councillor Spate. I want to be clear that we are not working to a council timeline. The government set the timeline for local government reorganisation, and we either follow it or we take Thurrock and the needs and the hopes of residents out of the conversation entirely and let other councils have their say on what's best for our residents. There is no time to pause and reflect, as your question suggests. In reality, the danger would come from not putting forward our carefully thought through proposal. I've been very honest and open with Essex leaders at the Essex Chief Executives meetings, Essex leaders and Chief Executives meetings, at full council, at scrutiny meetings, during councillor briefings, at public community events, that I do not believe that the proposals for 3 and 5 work for the people of Thurrock, or indeed the wider population of Greater Essex. I am committed to putting forward a strong 4 councils on the table that we think best delivers for the Greater Essex. This is not a decision of 49 councillors. Our role is to ensure that all viable options are on the table for them to be consulted on. All Thurrock's residents will then have the opportunity to read all the proposals and then share their views before the Secretary of State makes the final decision. By putting this proposal forward, we are helping to widen that debate, not just close it down. It is important to note that this is not the support of other councils that will determine the outcome. It is not a popularity contest. The government will lead on an Essex-wide consultation, and the government will then decide which proposals offer the people of Greater Essex the strongest set of councils. I would ask you that you and any other councillor take part in the government's consultation and encourage your residents to do the same.
I think in terms of a supplementary to that answer, when you made your opening speech, you mentioned the fact that you were driven by the need to look after the whole of Essex. You didn't actually mention Thurrock once in terms of what is best for Thurrock residents. You say you haven't got time to pause and reflect. I think this cabinet, which is the decision-making body, and yourself have got the time, even now, even though the clock is ticking down to the 26th, to sit down and rethink, taking on board what other people have said. You've gone against having a public debate involving 49 councillors.
Councillor, can you get to your question?
Yeah, I'm
not
gonna
a
get
big
to-
long. You're making quite a statement to get to it,
Okay,
please. I've
all
got like lots of questions to get through to.
Okay, so do you really believe that you are serving the best interests of Thurrock by going down a plan that nobody else supports?
Thank you, Councillor Spate. And I absolutely, from the moment that I see what was being proposed for us, knew that we needed to put something different on the table. So yes, I absolutely do. There is nothing more than I want is to make sure that Thurrock gets the best. You know, the best still, and that is all that I'm doing. And as I said, it's not a popularity contest. You know, you've always made good comments. You know, you always like enter into debates. But I don't think you're right, right? And I will not be taking, well, hopefully I won't. It'll be a decision by this executive tonight, but I do not think you're right. I don't think that this comes off of the table. We said from the beginning, as soon as the government announced local government reorganisation, that we would be led by the evidence, and the evidence led us that 4 is a sensible option. It needs to be on the table to debate it along with the 3 and the 5 and the other 4, whatever the government decides. So absolutely, it won't be coming off the table, Councillor Spate. I think it's the right decision. Thurrock residents deserve to have everything on the table. Do you have a second question?
Okay, the proposal put forward by Thurrock makes assumptions around debt support that are unverified. When will we as residents and members know whether these assumptions are correct? And does the proposed 4 unitary model still work if they are not?
Thank you. MHCLG have committed to providing an element of debt support to Thurrock Council. I'm sure officers will provide you with that evidence of this. It has been circulated before as part of best value reports. Like all other proposals, not just ours, we have all made assumptions that what level of support could be in our modelling. We are working closely with commissioners, ministers, officials in the department, and they are aware of the approach that we are taking with our modelling. Due to the level of debt in Thurrock, commissioners have also had meetings with officers from all councils, including ours, to ensure that the debt can be absorbed into the modelling of the new unitary council.
Okay, well, so we're guessing, and if you look at the report that is before this cabinet this evening, if you look at the last part of the report where you've got CITFA, and the CITFA supplies its best thoughts on debt provision and the other thing, and basically it's a blank sheet of paper because they don't know, you don't know, and the government doesn't know at this point in time. So you're making a proposal that is based on a best guess. Is that it's you know, you've got other options on the table that make better financial sense, they are better and more viable for Thurrock. Surely, given the lack of information, it would be prudent to go with the guess that is backed up financially the most, and it is not your floor plan. Do you not agree with that?
Again, councillor, you are entitled to your opinion, but as again, I don't agree with your opinion. And the SIPFA papers, it's one paper that will go, that all councillors have to complete, and I can bring the finance officer in if you'd like to hear as to why. But all of the councils have to complete that SIPFA paper as one document. We're not doing any different to any other council. It's one document that proves that this is financially viable. And our plan is financially viable, whether you believe it is or not, and it will be for the government to decide. It will be for commissioners to have an opinion on whether it's financially viable. It won't be for councillors here that, you know, we absolutely believe that what we've got is a solid unitary proposal to put on the table. And, you know, and I think that actually ours has got far more in it than other counts and than other proposals. So I'm sorry that you don't agree with us, but I don't think, and you haven't said what is your where you want us to go. You haven't said whether it's 3, 5. You've just said there is one that's more that's more viable, but you haven't said what that is. But we believe here that the residents should have the opportunity to see what the floor looks like. So thank you for your comments tonight, and I encourage you to take part in the consultations. Councillor Salmons.
Hold on, just keep it calm.
I've got to find her ones.
Good evening.
Councillor Salmons, would you like to read your question?
Yes. I'm very concerned that our local services, bins, road sweepers, parks, etc., may become even fewer. Where will the depots for these services be?
Thank you, Councillor Salmons. The location for future depots or any council buildings will be something for the councillors within each new authority to decide. By moving to our 4 unitary model, we believe that each of those new councils will start on a sound financial footing and remain close to the residents to deliver the services that people need. Our proposal is not predicted on a reduction in any frontline services.
Okay, thank you. I just had concerns that we might have depots in, say, Harlow to deliver bin services, parks, etc. in Thurrock.
Is that your second question? Sorry.
No, my second
Oh,
question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Does the executive have any thoughts on what level of council tax it is that's likely for Thurrock residents will be alleviated to if the preferred option with Brentwood, Epping and Harlow is attained?
Okay, sorry. You was entitled to a supplementary to your first one. Did you not want it? Okay. That's what I was alluding to. Did you have a second question? But we'll move on to your next question. That's fine. I'll answer that for you. Okay, that's absolutely fine, Councillor Salmons. So we know from reorganisation that has come before us that new unitaries harmonise council tax so that all residents within that new geography pay the same rate. These are regulations in place to allow new councils to harmonise over a number of years, so there will be no sudden change. Our analysis shows that if the councils in the west of the authority were to equalise based on 2024-25 rates, existing Thurrock residents in a Band B property would see an increase of £36 a year. It would be £48 increase for C properties and £45 for D properties. All of these are below 3%, and I would expect that new councils to have appropriate schemes in place to support their residents.
Okay, thank you. That's a question that lots of residents are concerned that if we're joining councils like Brentwood, that suddenly the council tax is going to hike.
But not as much as people probably would have been expecting. So absolutely. So hopefully you can alleviate your residents' concerns. Okay. Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Leader.
Oh, you've got your own. I was going to invite you to move.
The resident survey states many respondents fear being absorbed into larger or London-based authorities, which they believe would dilute the local voice and control. Why then is a 4-unitary model the one that looks to London being submitted by their own council?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fox. And we're back to a question that's been raised and it's been discussed at length. And I suppose really I'm just a little bit disappointed that, considering the hours that we've spent in scrutiny discussing this, that here we find ourselves again. But certainly we've heard concerns about becoming a London borough. I suppose that's what you've heard, and that's been clear that we've had those conversations. But again, I'm going to say that there is absolutely zero chance of that happening as part of local government reorganisation, which is restricted, and it covers the area and the footprint of the 15 Essex councils. It's not going into London, we're not going into London, and you will not find a shred of evidence on any of the proposals that will get submitted to say that we are going to be absorbed by London, or that any other area is going to be absorbed by London. Okay, because there's other areas that are probably nearer to London, and they're not. It's not in their proposals, not in our proposals, for that to happen. So once we remove that myth that we're going into London, and many residents actually, I like living near London. Makes it really easy for me to go and socialise in London. I'll get to visit my son really quickly. He can travel into London, I can travel into London. And lots of people in Thurrock actually feel the benefit of living near London. So other research that was carried out and surveys that wasn't part of this, but we're quite happy to put it in as an appendix, shows that when residents were asked, one of the things that they liked about living in Thurrock was that they could get into London. So it's a simple fact, that it's not that we're getting absorbed, it's just a simple fact. We can't pick ourselves up and move ourselves. We simply live near London. So people feel the benefits of being able to go to London. So absolutely, so just in case anybody that's listening and hasn't quite got it, we're not moving into London. It never was. We are on an Essex footprint with local government reorganisation. Thank you. Do you have a second question, a supplementary on that?
No supplementary on that one at all.
Second question.
It seems we're not yet able to form an opinion on the key metrics, as the financial indicators are severely lacking. By the report's own admission, there is still design work that needs to be done at this late stage. Does this proposal not represent an enormous leap in faith on TBC's part that could, much like well-documented historical risky investments, bring further financial ruin to Thurrock, or do you have important information that we do not?
Thank you, Councillor Fox, for your second question. The proposal for consideration for Cabinet tonight is a complete draft underpinned by robust financial cases and based on data and insights that have been agreed across Essex. The design work that we need to do refers to the look and feel of the document and not the actual content. the content. It's literally, there is nothing more to add to it. It's just design work that's missing. There is no hidden agenda. There's nothing that we're keeping from you. You know, what goes on just needs tidying up and finishing up.
Thank you very much. No supplementary.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and good evening, everybody. I fully respect everyone has different ideas and opinions of what we should have, but having studied all the proposals in great detail, I'm personally minded to support the 5 council option because it gives maximum local representation. How can the Leader justify diluting the impact of local councillors on local governance? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones, I am absolutely going to commend you for reading all 4 of the proposals in great detail. That is some level of bedtime reading you've had in 1 week.
Absolutely.
I can tell. Local representation is an essential part of local government reorganisation, and of course one that I advocate. The number of elected members must now be carefully balanced with the need to create councils that work for residents, meet the criteria and have been set by the government. This is including a reduction in elected members. We are not the first council to undertake local government reorganisation, and we have used the metrics that have been tried and tested and worked for setting the number of elected members in each of the unitary councils. Our proposal creates councils that will last and strengthen the impact of councillors through the creation of neighbourhood area committees, giving all elected members new powers of influence over populations that are workable. All elements of our business case is balanced, and we have always said from the off that we will be led by the evidence, and that is why we've got 4, because when we looked at the evidence we needed to add something else on the table. And I'm concerned that the 5 unitary model creates councils that have not been led by the evidence and would not withstand the pressures or fulfil its functions, including that of local democracy and representation. But my biggest concern goes much further than the number of elected members. The finances, of which all assumptions, including the number of elected members, have been made, they don't add up. And I listened to the Basildon scrutiny meeting on the 9th of September, and I suggest that you too listen to the questions asked of the Leader before you make your decision of where you lay your support. The Leader gave a number of facts in his responses which were simply not accurate. And we'll see any merger between Thurrock and Basildon set to fail on day 1, regardless of the number of elected members. During that meeting, which was the first time their scrutiny had even seen the document, and it was for noting there was none of the amount of scrutiny and the engagement that we've had here in Thurrock that brought forward the 5 unitary authority plan. He has assured his members that by 2028 Thurrock's unsupported debt would be reduced to, and I use his words not mine, the 400 million mark. It's simply not true. If we meet all of our obligations, we will still be in the region of 800 million before government intervention. So to round that circle and to take you back to where you were, if the Leader of Basildon Council thinks that Thurrock Council is going to have 400 million debt and that the government's going to pay that off and we go in with a clean slate, he's wrong. And that makes me think that maybe in working those numbers for how many councils he's going to have, maybe he's wrong there too.
Thank you, Leader. My concern is basically if you look at the number of councillors, they are in Essex, 720, I believe, and we're going to cut these down to 280. So, and the numbers that them councillors are expected to represent, I've got one of the biggest wards in Thurrock, and I know the workload involved. So this is what concerns me, is that the councillors are going to be reduced and their workload is going to be that much more because of the numbers that have been put forward in residents to represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. And I too am concerned about the Essex numbers. Okay, so it is, you're right, there's 700 councillors, 625 districts and 75 for the county. And they're going down to 284. Okay, that concerns me. So that is why I think that we need to think about not following the 3. You know, that's why 4 is sensible. You know, and if you was to ask me on a clean slate what I want, then maybe 5 is right, but not with the finances, not with the amount of debt that we will be carrying and they carry too. I just don't see that it's the sensible option. So what I'm asking is just that we give government the option to look at, you know, our sensible offer on the table. That is all I wanted. You know, I just knew that the 3 left us wide open, took our residents and us away from our communities. And you're right, you're going to want to stay near your communities. I want to stay near my community too. So that took me away from the 3. Okay, then the worry of the finance is what takes me away from the 5. So I believe that there needs to be something in the middle. And that is why I've brought the 4 to the table. That is why I made it very clear from the onset that I would be bringing the 4 to the table to make sure that residents get the best chance to be able to look and vote and consult with the government. And remember, this isn't us, you know, make sure that you encourage your residents to do so, to give the government enough for them to make an informed option about what's going to matter to the residents across Essex, across Thurrock, across Essex. For what is 20, 30, 40 years. It's not us 49 councillors going to be here forever. Okay, we've got to make sure that what we leave behind is a legacy that works for all Thurrock residents, not for what our personal opinion is. Okay, it's got to be that that the government's got something on the table that really works, and I really think 4 really works. But thank you for reading all of those, and I suggest that you go and watch the scrutiny meeting, and I hope that it can turn you into making sure that actually 4's the number. Thank you.
I'm always open to learn and listen. Thank you. No second question.
Thank you. I'm now going to... Does anybody else have any questions? Anybody? Nobody? Okay.
I have, actually.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Watson.
So, you just mentioned about the level of residents' consultation as well as all engagement, because we can't concentrate on this, engagement we have done with everybody. How much have we done then in comparison to Essex and on the 5 model?
Thank you. So from the off, as soon as we decided that we would be looking at this ourselves, so we've had a cross-party working group that's seen everything that's as it's come up. They've seen some pretty confidential stuff, and you know, not been able to share it until the right time. They've seen metrics, they've seen everything that needs to be seen by a cross-party working group. We've had scrutiny meetings. We've had at least 3 and I think Councillor Kent did one before I became the leader. So we've had scrutiny meetings where they've looked at all of the key elements that make up the business plan. We've had a webcast meeting for residents where any resident across Thurrock was able to join that. We have had all 49 councillor webcast meeting where 25 councillors were able to come to that. We have been at every big lunch. We've been at libraries. We've been at the Thameside Theatre where residents were able to come. There was nothing prescribed. They could ask me and Alex any question that they wanted on local reorganisation and why we chose that 4 modelling. And residents really appreciated that we actually went there with no pre-agenda, nothing off the table, and it was a really good evening, and I think residents really got a lot out of that. We have had an engagement survey. So we've had regular updates on the government, on our website. We've had regular updates on the council's Facebook pages. So I think that we've done, you know, and considering that last week when I was quite surprised when I did listen to the Basildon one to find that it hadn't even been near their scrutiny committee. And ours has been to the scrutiny committee time and time again. And the recommendations that came out of that scrutiny meeting are embedded deep into what's going forward as our 4 model. This isn't a me model. This isn't something that I've done, you know, and as much as people say this is yours, it's not. This is something that's had cross-party hands all over it. We haven't hid anything, you know, so this is a really strong model. This is going to work, and I think that, you know, I've met with other leaders and they've welcomed it and accepted that actually it is a really, really strong model. So I think that we've done far more than any other council has done, considering that they've been working on it since last August and we've been working on it since June. So I think, you know, that we can give ourselves a pat on the back, our officers a pat on the back, and, you know, and I think that we've done really, really well. And I'm looking forward to getting this, hopefully, for Cabinet to be able to agree tonight that actually this goes forward. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm going to go, oh, sorry, Councillor Kent.
Yeah, sorry, you asked for questions previously. I mean, I support the 4 recommendations we've got before us tonight, and I think I've, you know, kind of lived this for most of the last 14 months, from a King's speech and a manifesto that didn't mention local government reorganisation at all, to reorganisation suddenly being on the agenda alongside devolution, to seeing some other authorities out of the traps, before the race had kind of started with proposals that frankly haven't moved on too much. So what I've tried to do is to take myself out of it, and I've read each of the proposals in an open manner as I possibly can, and I respect and understand the arguments that others are making. I think Councillor Jones made the point very strongly that a 5 model does keep politicians closer to their communities, which was something that we'd all want. You know, you had a magic wand, you'd be looking at 14 unitary authorities, not 5. But that simply isn't the real world, and the finances for that just don't stack up. You then look at the 3 model, which is financially probably more robust, more resilient than a 4 model, certainly more robust and resilient than a 5 model, but is too remote from local communities, is too big, and if I'm being unkind, kind of smacks of Essex County Council trying to replicate what they already have on a big is better kind of model. So I think that the 4 model does work, and I think it delivers what we need to see it delivering, and that is creating an authority. And you know, let's face it, we are still financially in incredibly difficult circumstances. We need to be part of an authority that is stronger, that is more resilient, and is better placed to deliver the quality of services that our residents deserve. Because we all know that we can't do that at the moment to the level that we would like. And this is a snapshot in time. We've got to think about the best for our communities in 3, 4, 5, 10 years' time. And I believe that's through the 4 model. And we've heard tonight the suggestion that we kind of pause and reflect. But, frankly, we have been working these things through for many months. And to pause and reflect at this stage would be seen by ministers as just havering and losing our nerve, and that's something that we really can't do. The one plea that I have is, I think we've done an awful lot of consultation, we've done a lot of engagement, but I think we have missed out proper conversation, proper engagement with some of our key partners. And I just ask that as we create whatever the new authority is, whether it's 3, 4, 5, or a different number that the minister comes up with, I know we need primary legislation to do that, but it's not totally off the table, that we do make sure that we fully involve our community partners, we involve the voluntary sector, the business community, in helping to design whatever comes next on whatever model we end up with.
Thank you. Thanks, John, and I absolutely agree with you, you know, and there's been many a conversation that we've had ourselves, like, there's no silver bullet for this, you know, there is merits to the 3, there's merits to the 4, and there's merits to the 5. Okay, but of course we want to make sure we stay, that's what we all come into politics for, is to stay close to our communities and represent them. And you're right, our communities, our voluntary sector will play an enormous role. Okay, once we know who we're going to be, you know, working with, there's a huge amount of work that Essex leaders and officers are already, you know, working together to make sure that we make sure that nobody falls through the net, that the services, you know, there's continuation to run, you know, so there's a huge couple of years in front of us once we find out whether we're a 3, a 4 or 5, and making sure that, you know, we look further than just our own area, our own direct area. So I think that it's an opportunity, it's a once in a lifetime, and I'm really looking forward to working on it with councillors across wherever, you know, wherever we should land, 3, 4 or 5. Hopefully our 4, I'm pretty confident that, you know, once people start having a little scratch below the surface and see just how good our 4 is, that's where we'll go. But it's exciting times, you know, it's scary times, but at the same time, let's make sure that, you know, in the same way that Essex is working together to make sure it works, we have to make sure that us as councillors put our differences aside, and whatever comes out of it, we have to make it work. We have to, because our residents are going to rely on us making sure it works. So thank you, and thank you for your wise words as always, John. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything that they want to say? Councillor Morris.
Just a quick one, really. When we're talking about the 3 model, I mean, obviously the finances are extremely strong until you actually look who we're partnered with. And then if you look that we're partnered with Southend, which is another unitary, I would imagine that there is a considerable amount of costs that will be incurred actually splitting the services that we both do and trying to merge them into one, rather than obviously each of the 2 unitaries in Essex County going with other districts.
Thanks, Councillor Morris Cook. And do you know, that is my biggest concern about the big. You know, it takes us further away and it puts 2 unitary councils in with each other. And then we've suddenly got to unpick all of those services, all the big services as well, you know, social care, children's social care, education, place, IT, everything that makes a unitary. We've got to unpick that. And, you know, and history in front of us shows us that takes years, 7 years, you know, a real cost. And it then takes away any of the savings that have been predicted in writing, you know, that business case. So there again, so on paper it looks okay, but can you imagine that, you know, we get up one morning and suddenly we've got to say to Southend, right, between us, we've got to come up with one cohort of officers, one cohort of services, you know, on major scales for 730,000 residents before any growth. Okay, that's a huge council, the second biggest council, I think, maybe in the country. You know, is it time for us to do that? I think not. I think it would be so difficult and would create, you know, absolute chaos for years upon years. But the government decides, then we'll buckle down and get the job done. I don't think it's the right thing. I think that actually 3 is just not for us. I think that 4 is the sensible one on the table. It is the magic number. It's the one that all of the evidence pointed to the 4. And that's why I'm asking you to agree the 4 tonight. So if nobody's got any more questions, then I'm going to move to the recommendations, if that's okay. Nobody? Okay. Right, so 2.1, to approve the Council's local government reorganisation proposal for a 4 unitary authority model, the right balance, creating financially sustainable councils close to communities in Greater Essex, appended to this report.
Agreed.
Agreed? 2.2, if 2.1 is agreed, to agree to submit the plan to the Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution on or before the 26th of September 2025. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
2.3, delegate to the Assistant Chief Executive Authority to submit Thurrock Council's local government reorganisation proposal for a 4-unitary authority model on or before the 26th of September on behalf of the Council, and to make any amendments as referenced in sections 1.5 above that Appendix A is draft, following consultation with the Leader and Deputy Leader. Agreed. And 2.4, delegate to the Assistant Chief Executive Authority to submit a joint covering letter to Government alongside Greater Essex Partners on or before the 26th of September on behalf of the Council, and to make any amendments following consultation with the Leader and Deputy Leader.
Agreed.
Oh, yep, all agreed? Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to devolution. So again, this is my report, so it probably won't take us long, hopefully, to get through this one. Devolution is our moment to shape the future of Essex on our own terms. By creating a new Greater Essex Combined Authority covering Essex County, Southend and Thurrock, we unlock the power to lead our region's growth with ambition and purpose. Led by an elected mayor, this authority will draw down funding and powers from government, allowing us to tackle challenges and seize opportunities, from transport and skills to housing, regeneration and the environment. Key powers include becoming a local transport authority, taking on police, fire and commissioner functions from April 2027, influencing adult skills funding from August 2027, but just as vital are the broader powers to drive strategic planning, improve health outcomes, boost employment and represent Greater Essex on the national and international stage. This report updates Cabinet on our progress and seeks agreement to signal to the Government that we are content for regulations to be laid in Parliament to formally establish the authority in 2026. Earlier this month, the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee reviewed the proposals, raised thoughtful questions and endorsed the recommendations. This is our chance to lead, not to be led, to build a future shaped by Greater Essex, for Greater Essex. I'm proud to present this report and ask for your support to move forward with devolution for Greater Essex. Do members have any questions on this report? Any comments on this report? No? Okay. Oh, Councillor Kemp.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's been an awful long time in the making. You know, this has probably been 20 years or more in the making. And I think we all recognise that the United Kingdom is one of the most over-centralised countries in the Western world. And that principle of moving power, responsibility, decision-making closer to the communities that are affected by them is one, for me, that is unanswerable, and that's what this does. I was always, from day one, against local government reorganisation at the same time as devolution, because I think devolution is absolutely critical and was always going to be overshadowed by local government reorganisation, partly because it's something that people understand more than they understand devolution. And it's no criticism whatsoever, but it's also no coincidence that we had 8 questions tonight on local government reorganisation and none on devolution. But devolution gives us the real opportunity to get the accelerators under the economy in Essex. And the economy in Essex is already in a pretty good place. 100,000 businesses, 860,000 jobs, generating £50 billion a year. We have 2 free ports. We have the London Stansted, Cambridge corridor. You know, an awful lot going for it. But the economy of Essex just doesn't work as well as it could. And it's just a statement of fact that if we could bring productivity across Essex up to the average of South East local authorities, then actually the economy would be something like 17% bigger. And that 17% bigger means more jobs, more money in people's pockets, more money for vital services. So I think this is absolutely unanswerable. But we are going to have some real issues as we go forward. And I note the Commissioner's comments, which say that we need to be clearer as to what our aims are and our asks are of the new combined authority. So, and I just ask when we're going to start doing that work. Adult skills gets transferred to the mayoral authority from the back end of 2027, which means that people who are working in the adult community sector here at the adult college here are already concerned about what the future looks like for them. We need to consider how we consult and how we protect them, and again we need to be thinking now about how we're going to involve the community and voluntary sector in a really meaningful way, giving them a voice in helping to create whatever comes next. But I think this is good news for people in Thurrock, good news for people in Essex, and I completely endorse the recommendations that we have.
Thanks, Councillor Kent, and I agree with you, and I agree that people do not understand the difference between local government reorganisation and devolution. I've spent a lot of hours in the last couple of weeks listening to other councils debate local government reorganisation and devolution, and even elected members stand up and give long speeches about the wrong subject at the wrong time, you know. So that is the real confusion that is out there. So that gives us a real issue. You know, we have got to be able to break through and, you know, almost take this out to the communities so that they understand what's going to be happening, and much quicker than local government reorganisation, because from next May we have a mayor, and the mayor will start to take have responsibilities, significant responsibilities with significant amounts of money that affect us here. So we do, and in the same way that up until submitting our local government reorganisation, we've had the working group. I almost feel like that working group has served its purpose for what it is. We need to re-establish something very, very different. To make sure that, you know, we move into devolution and take everybody with us with a clear understanding. And across Essex, I have another summit. I have a summit in beginning of October with officers and with leaders from across Essex to start to look at how we actually do move into a new mayoral authority, and making sure that we do take all of our services with us, including the voluntary sector, including those people. You know, we've got to make sure that nobody gets left behind in this. So I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Kent, that we've got a big job in front of us, and it will be running alongside another big job, which is local government reorganisation, and we have to make sure that we can, you know, split the two, but make sure that we represent our residents as best we can.
Victoria.
Councillor Holloway, I can see.
Thank you, Leader. I think this, as Councillor Kent said, is just as important, if not more important, than local government reorganisation. We've seen how strong other parts of the country have been when they have had devolution models and had that potential of growth. I think, again, it's also so important that communications and how we're communicating with residents and organisations about devolution just as much as we did for LGR. And you highlighted, you know, very eloquently everything that had been done on communications and engagement, and I think we just have to use that model to go through and do the same again, and I think we will be one of the areas where our residents do understand the difference, because we've communicated with them distinctly about LGR and what that means for them, and they can access resources and information about it, and now we can go on to speak to them about devolution. So very much welcome and support the recommendations as well.
Thank you. And if there's one thing that Thurrock Council's always done well, and that is communicate, you know, and making sure that we do ask residents, you know. So absolutely, it would be something, you know, that's top of the list now, to make sure that, you know, we move on and make sure that everybody realises what's coming down the line. So looking forward to moving that and making sure that our voice is heard loud and clear across the rest of Essex, and that we don't get drowned out. So to make sure that that happens. So thank you, Councillor Holloway. Councillor Watson, did you have a question?
it's not really a question, it's more of a statement. So completely agree with both Councillor Kent and Holloway. Devolution has been completely lost in LGR, and what we don't recognise is that actually the businesses across the whole entire of Essex don't care about LGR. They actually really care about devolution, and they're now asking questions about how can they get to the table and how the mayor can unlock things for them, because we sit on a strategic corridor on the A127 and we've got the Freeport that's asking how does this work and how can the mayor unlock the red tape for us in order to get into government and be heard. So I think this is a really important piece of work that is being overshadowed, quite rightly, in some way with LGR, but devolution for us, our business, our economy, is more important than the LGR is right at this moment in time.
Absolutely, and we'll be making sure that we shout loud and clear, you know, making sure that, you know, it sits centre front of our decision making, and it will carry on reports coming back to Cabinet, reports coming back to Council, you know, making sure that, you know, we take everybody on that journey and make decisions that affect residents at the right time. Thank you. Anybody else got anything to say? No? Okay, I'm going to move to the recommendations. So recommendations, for the reasons set out in the report, the Cabinet is recommended to consider and consent to the laying of the subsequent making of the Greater Essex Combined Authority Regulations 2026, subject to Parliamentary approval. Agreed. 2.2, delegate authority to the Assistant Chief Executive in consultation with the Leader of the Council and the Chief Executive, Managing Director, Commissioner to approve any required changes to the draft regulations and consent to the final version prior to laying before Parliament. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
And 2.3, to note progress made on the devolution programme since the last report to Cabinet in March 2025. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Is this here? No, that's... Right, so I'm going to move on. It's my night tonight. I think it's my last report now. Yeah. Hold on, I've got to find my report. I've got a lot of papers going on here tonight. Oh, I got it here, sorry. Right, thank you. This is my last one tonight, and then I can put some papers away. Last year, the Council unanimously agreed the corporate plan. I'm pleased to bring this latest iteration to our pivotal guided plan, which I believe demonstrates the Council's continued improvement journey. The plan is an important part of demonstrating our commitment to being accountable to residents on what we are delivering for Thurrock. It sets out a clear direction for staff who are at the heart of making sure change and delivery happens at Thurrock Council. In response to our statutory directions from the government, we have incorporated the improvement and recovery plan into a single document. We now have one simple and holistic plan for the Council, always better to be joined up if you want clarity. The messages in the plan have been refocused and written through a co-designed approach with our staff. Officers from all services have fed into this review, further strengthening its accountability at an officer level and embedding the golden thread to ensure we deliver on the promises that we have made. However, as you will notice, the plan isn't a wholesale overhaul. It keeps the integrity of the commitments we made last year and continues to include the priorities which we agreed were important. They are financial stability, improvements in data and digital, making it easier for our residents to interact with us, locality-based working in focus on prevention, and setting out a place proposition for Thurrock. This last priority becomes even more important in the context of the changing local government landscape and ensures that we can advocate clearly on behalf of our residents in a new mayoral and unitary authority. I welcome Cabinet members' comments and feedback, and I ask Cabinet to support that this plan is recommended to full Council now for adoption. Any comments? Questions, comments? Nobody? Victoria. Oh, sorry, Victoria.
Just to say, I know that corporate improvement plans and corporate plans more generally and strategic documents are not always the most exciting documents for us as councillors, but I'm sure maybe even not officers to produce. However, I think these documents are really, really important to set a groundwork and direction for us that we can be held accountable for. And they are really essential for how we, develop and improve and build on our successes in the last year or two. So just fully welcome the recommendations and just well done for officers for all the work they've put into it.
Anybody else? Thank you. And it almost feels like we've had a corporate plan around for years, but it's not actually like last year. We introduced the corporate plan. We was without one for so many years. But it actually gives us a vision and a strategic way for us to be able to deliver in. And the fact that everything now runs in with our improvement, I think that it's a great piece of work. So I endorse what you're saying as well, Councillor Holloway. So thank you for officers and for staff, the staff as well that have fed into making sure that this document speaks for them too. And thank you. So nobody else want to say nothing? Okay, so we're going to move on to the recommendations. And for reasons set out in the report, the Cabinet is recommended to, just one recommendation for this one, agree the Corporate and Improvement Plan 25 to 29 and recommend its adoption to full council on the 22nd of October 2025 as part of the Constitution Policy Framework. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to item 14. Finally, it's not me.
It's me.
It's the local plan update. Can I ask Councillor Watson to introduce the item?
Thank you, Leader. This report provides Cabinet with an important update on the progress being made in developing the Thurrock local plan, following the programme set out in the local development scheme agreed in October 2024. The local plan is a blueprint for Thurrock's future, covering the period of 2024 to 2044 and sets out how we plan for housing, jobs, infrastructure and growth in a way that meets the needs for our communities. The report outlines the progress we have made in securing the robust evidence base required to underpin the plan, including the approach we are taking to define the scale of growth that we will need to be accommodated. It also highlights the key risks to delivery and the actions being taken to manage them. I'm pleased to say that despite the challenges, the local plan does remain on track, with consultation on the final draft Regulation 19 version planned for spring 2026 and adopted expected early in 2028. I want to emphasise two important points. First, the plan will consider the implications of the Lower Thames Crossing and the Norwich to Tilbury National Grid network proposals. This will demonstrate the foresight of the work already undertaken and ensures that we are proactively preparing for the scale of change these projects could bring. Second, the work sits at the very heart of my portfolio. Delivering a sound and timely local plan is not only a statutory requirement, but also a political commitment, ensuring that Thurrock has a very clear, well-prepared framework in place ahead of government deadlines and ahead of the introduction of the elected mayor of Essex Combined Authority. It's also really important to recognise that under the previous Conservative administration, progress on the local plan was severely delayed and not treated with the priority it deserved. That has led us with significant grounds to make up. However, under this administration and our planning officers that I have thanked a lot, we are now fully focused on driving this forward. Their commitment is ensuring that Thurrock will finally have a local plan it needs to guide sustainable growth and protect our communities for the future. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Watson on the local plan?
No.
Councillor Hooper.
With the development of LGR, how do these plans become relevant?
So Watson?
Thank you for your question. Every single, no matter which unitary, which way we go or which district we go into, has to have a local plan anyway. So we need to be at the point where we can novate it into the mayor. The mayor, as combined authority, will eventually have an overarching strategic plan for the whole of Greater Essex, but our plan will still remain our plan, just like the four, if we go into the 4 or the 3 or the 2 or the other 4. It will go alongside what their plans are. It just gives us a blueprint of what we can do within our area, and that's how we will hold it to account on the developers.
Councillor Kemp, there's a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly a critical piece of work. It's a piece of work that should have been completed back in, whatever it was, 2022. But we are where we are. It's kind of a rescue mission. But there are lots and lots of moving parts, and just keeping everything on track is going to be incredibly difficult. And the bit that concerns me most of all is that when things get really difficult, then clearly you need to throw more money at it. You need to resource it better. Are we confident that we have the funding necessary to make sure that we complete this in the timescale that we've got here?
Thank you for your question. The answer is yes. So there is a budget that's already put aside from it through the finances, and we're well within our budget envelope that we currently have now. So we're on track to complete within the budget that we have.
Councillor Watson, can I just ask you, so when we was at overview and scrutiny, and one of the questions around local government reform and devolution was, are people just going to be able to come and, inflict large plans against us? Does this protect us from people, the mayor coming over and saying, well, we're going to make you build that there? Does the local plan offer us some kind of security from, being able to build where we decide the building should be?
So thank you for your question, Leader. Yes, it does, because the local plan will have designated areas where you can build, and they're the areas that have been offered up by the developments anyway. So all the land that sits within the local plan that comes forward is developers that's already got that land that they've already bought. So they can't just come in and go, we're just going to, that bit of shrubbery over there, we're going to put there. If it's not in our local plan, it can't happen. What the mayor will probably do is end up looking at the strategic vision of things like new towns and big infrastructure projects. That's to be decided on what strategic planning means and what goes into the combined authority. But it could be something like for 2,000 homes above has the mayoral consent to it. But the local plan, our local plan is our local plan, and it doesn't mean that any other council can come and, even if we're together, can come and build on it, and nor can just the mayor just come along and say, I'm just going to take that bit of land there.
Thank you, that's really useful, because I know that, attending overview and scrutiny, it was something that, they was really concerned about. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay, then I'm going to move on to recommendations.
Thank you. Recommendations set out in the report. 2.1. Note the progress made in developing the Thurrock local plan subsequent to the previous update report presented to Cabinet in February 2025.
Agreed. Okay. And we're going to move on to item 15, the endorsement of the Greater Essex Local Nature Recovery Strategy. And again, that's for you, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Back to me. This report presents the draft Essex Local Natural Recovery Strategy prepared by Essex County Council under the Environment Act of 2021. Whilst Essex County Council is the lead authority, Thurrock and other local councils are supporting authorities working alongside the Essex Local Natural Partnership, Natural England, and a wide range of stakeholders from farmers and landowners to community and the environmental groups. This is an exciting moment for Essex. The UK is the first county in the world to require by law the recovery of its natural environment. And Essex is amongst the first country to show how this can be delivered locally. They're also a county, not a country. I think Essex would like to be a country, as in the LGR proposals. The emphasis here is on recovery. For too long, efforts has focused only on a slow decline, yet nature across Essex has faced alarming losses of habitat, wildlife and biodiversity driven by development, intensive agriculture, pollution, invasive species and now climate change. That is why this strategy matters. It sets a shared vision to restore nature, protect wildlife and create a richer, more resilient environment for future generations. As a portfolio holder, I am deeply passionate about protecting Thurrock's green spaces and their biodiversity. And I know many of our residents feel the same. As a supporting authority, Thurrock will play its full part in making the strategy a success. Thank you.
Questions for Councillor Watson? Councillor Holloway.
Not necessarily a question, you'll be relieved, Councillor, but more of a statement. And I think it says a lot because the fact that this, sits under your portfolio with regards to kind of planning and development and infrastructure and not mine, which is green spaces, because of how intrinsically linked and the importance of development is, and remembering how important our green spaces are, as this report says, not just to protect but now to recover. And I think it's so important that we have to be thinking about that when every single time we're thinking about every single thing we plan. I know that councillors and residents think about it so much already, but this highlights the priority and sets us tonight as agreeing, I know it is to note this report, but it sets us to say and agree that green spaces are of paramount importance and the recovery of that, and that as an authority we're thinking about that in every decision that we make. So I really welcome this report tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else got any comments for this report? No? Yeah, no? Okay then. Okay, Councillor Watson, moving to
Thank
recommendation.
So the recommendation, note the planned adoption of the Essex Local Natural Recovery Strategy and LNRS by Essex County Council Cabinet at its July meeting, endorse the Essex LNRS in Thurrock Council's role as a supported authority and recognise it as a material planning consideration in making planning decisions.
Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to item 16, the adoption of a selective licensing scheme in Thurrock. Can I ask Councillor Mark Hurrell to introduce your item?
Good evening. Thank you. Apologies. Thank you, Leader. This report proposes the introduction of a selective licensing scheme for private rented properties in Thurrock. The purpose of the scheme is straightforward but vitally important: to improve housing conditions, reduce antisocial behaviour and ensure landlords are held accountable for the management of their properties. For too long, this authority has not had an up-to-date register of privately rented homes. That has made it difficult to identify rogue landlords and harder still to ensure that every resident in Thurrock has access to a safe, secure and decent home. This scheme changes that. The evidence is clear. Using data from the 2021 census, council tax records and the private housing stock condition survey, we know there are over 70,000 properties in Thurrock. Of these, 16,700 are in the private rented sector, nearly a quarter of all homes in the borough. Our analysis shows that more than 90% of the private housing stock would be eligible for registration under the selective licensing scheme. The administration of the scheme will be managed by a new PRS licensing and enforcement team, funded entirely through the licence fees. This ensures the scheme is cost neutral, in line with national regulations, with no additional burden placed on the council's core budget. Over the life of the scheme, we are expected to generate an operating budget of more than £12 million, fully covering its costs and allowing the council to carry out the necessary enforcement. It is also important to note that based on the government's criteria, 16 of our 20 wards met the threshold for inclusion in the scheme. This reflects the scale of the challenges we face in the private rented sector and underlines the need for firm and proactive action. This scheme will give us the tools to raise housing standards, clamp down on irresponsible landlords and ensure that the private rented sector plays its proper part in providing safe, secure and well-managed homes for our Thurrock residents. I commend this report to Cabinet.
Thanks, Councillor Howard. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Watson?
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Been a long time in the coming, this report, and I really do welcome this report for a number of reasons. It gives us the ability to enforce rogue landlords and also check properties, and for that I'm really grateful that this is now coming through. I wished it came through years ago, but we're always playing catch up at the moment anyway. Initially, how many licences or how many wards are we now looking at to roll this out to?
Thank you, Councillor Watson. 16 of the 20 wards. The other four will be looked at as and when they meet the eligibility criteria, if they do.
Anybody else got any questions, Councillor Hooper?
I too welcome this report. It's well overdue, and I'm really pleased you brought it here today. This means we're taking a positive, proactive response to making sure that our residents are getting good quality housing. Too often people are scared to speak up because of landlords having the power and the control. And I think this gives power actually back to the tenant and improves our housing stock in Thurrock. I also note that where this scheme has been rolled out in other parts of the country, community safety improves vastly. That's less pressure on our policing services and our other community services. So I really welcome this. There is obviously a charge to landlords. I don't think it's a big charge for a 5-year licence, and should have minimal impact on rents. But if people pass on that rental cost, I actually think it's really good value for money because of the extra quality of housing that people will be having the ability to live in. People won't be frightened, or should not be frightened, to raise the fact they've got damp and mould in their homes. So the council taking a proactive approach really keeps people safe and improves people's overall health. If you live in damp, mouldy homes, which I've actually seen in a number of our properties across Thurrock, it really is disconcerting, with children sleeping on mouldy pillows, damp rooms. I just welcome this. So thank you for bringing it today.
Thank you. Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Leader. It's just a comment really rather than a question. Obviously, I welcome this report. Just wanted to pick up something you were saying in your summary at the start there, that I think probably residents and myself as well, when you first hear it, quite surprised to hear that there wasn't previously any oversight on this, and that, you know, that there wasn't that list of private rentals. So I just want to say that obviously I really welcome this, and like everyone else has said, it's really very much overdue. So thank you, and thank you to officers for this.
Any more? Nobody? Okay, thank you. Mark, would you like to move to your recommendations?
Yeah. Can I come back on the
absolutely.
Both councillors' comments, please, first. There's private renting sector has been going up for years and years, and this should have been looked at years ago. So I'm really pleased that this has come about now. The whole idea of it is to give tenants more of a say and to not feel frightened, as the other councillor said, to speak up. If you look in the report, many of the graphs in there from the tenants are saying that the things are not right where they live in their properties. The landlords, on the other hand, are saying it's not so bad. Anyway, we'll leave that now. I'm really pleased that it's come about now as well, and I look forward to hopefully putting this through Cabinet. Thank you.
Would you like to read your recommendations?
Right, thank you, Leader. There is lots and lots of recommendations. So, okay, recommendations. For the reasons set out in this report, the Cabinet is recommended to 1.1. Take into account the consultation programme undertaken with the aim of ensuring that reasonable steps to consult with persons who are likely to be affected by the designation required by Section 80(9) of the Housing Act and in accordance with the government guidance. The consultation undertaken is detailed in Section 4. Agreed. Thank you. 1.2. Take into account the outcome of the public consultation as outlined in Appendix 1, Consultation Findings, the Council's considerations and formal responses as detailed in Appendix 2, and a summary of positive and negative feedback received during the consultation process provided in Appendix 3.
Agreed.
1.3. Agree that the selective licensing proposal evidence base in Appendix 4 met the legal requirement for introducing selective licensing designations on the grounds of poor property conditions, antisocial behaviour and high levels of deprivation.
Agreed.
1.4. Approve the designation of 16 out of 20 wards in as identified within Appendix 5 for selective licensing to last for 5 years from the date of the designations coming into force.
Agreed.
1.5. Approve the licence conditions attached at Appendix 6.
Agreed.
1.6. Approve the final fee structure as detailed in Appendix 7.
Agreed.
1.7. Agree that authority to issue the required statutory notifications in relation to selective licensing is delegated to to Executive Director of Corporate Services in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Social Housing.
Agreed.
1.8. Note that the scheme will be published via an agreed communication plan in accordance with the regulations before the designation comes into force.
Agreed.
1.9. Agree that the Executive Director of Corporate Services, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Social Housing, to be authorised to decide a date from which the Council will begin to accept applications for a selective licensing scheme.
Agreed.
1.10. Approve the procurement of a software application to support the effective administration, monitoring and enforcement of the Council's selective licensing scheme for private rented housing and delegate authority to the Executive Director of Corporate Services and the Section 151 officer in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Social Housing. 2. Finalise the procurement specification and tender documents. Undertake the tender process in accordance with the Council's contract procedure rules. Select the most suitable supplier based on cost effectiveness, functionality and value for money. Award the contract to the preferred bidder following the consultation of the procurement process within 2025-26.
Agreed.
End. Thank you.
Well done. That was mammoth. That was absolutely mammoth. So we're going to move on to item 17, which is the Q1 finance report. Councillor Morris Cook to present the report, please.
Thank you. For 25-26, the Council set a general fund revenue budget of £240.7 million. That breaks down into an operational budget of £176.4 million, Treasury costs of £64.3 million. To legally balance the budget, we also required £72.1 million of exceptional financial support. This report is our Q1 update. It looks at both revenue and capital forecasts, updates on the savings plan, reviews reserves, and sets out where we stand today. At Q1, we're forecasting an underspend of £2.269 million on the general fund revenue budget. And as the Commission have said, it's still early days. We've taken a cautious approach to the numbers and we're continuing work to reduce our operating budget, which in turn reduces the Council's dependence on central government support. We'll have a much clearer picture at Q2. On savings, our target is £18.966 million this year, which includes some of the savings that weren't achieved last year. By Q1, £12.8 million has either been delivered or is on track. The remainder is rated amber, with just £0.9 million currently red, To be absolutely clear, any savings that can't be delivered will be mitigated elsewhere. The HRA is showing a 0.49 million underspend, mainly due to staff costs. Both the General Fund and HRA capital programmes are forecasting slippages into the 2026-27 at this point. The HRA capital programme is under full review, and for the General Fund we're introducing a new process to improve oversight. That will include regular gateway reviews of projects and a capital board which I will chair to strengthen the financial stewardship. On our asset disposals, so far we've achieved just under 50% of the programme. Our divestment programme is nearing its end and a more detailed paper will be coming to Cabinet in November. At provisional outturn, I reported an underspend of 21.8 million, alongside a set of actions which are now fully underway. This included a full review of the budget forecasting, which is currently happening, budget rebasing, the outcomes of which will be reported at Q2, and a review of the 14 million that was put in for growth that was included in the budget. At present, 4.5 million of that growth remains unallocated and is now being held centrally. We're reviewing how much of it can be released to reduce pressure on the capitalisation direction and in turn on our exceptional financial support. We're also reviewing the Council's capital programme once more broadly, with a fresh revised draft during December. The detailed position for each of the directorates is fully set out in the report. I'll stop there and happy to take questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Morris-Cook? Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Leader. You mentioned they're taking a cautious approach to the numbers. What does that mean exactly?
No, thank you for the question. It means that we have released a 2.2 as an underspend. We could have added more to it. But really, to do that at period one is probably quite irresponsible, and it is better to at least wait till you're at Q2, possibly even Q3, because you can actually see where any further trends or pressures might come that could need to take away that little bit of bunts that we've possibly got in. Also, I did speak about the 4.5 million that hasn't been allocated yet for growth. It could be that something happens that you need to suddenly allocate that, and it would be quite irresponsible to put that on the table now at such an early stage.
Yeah, thank you for that response. I think that the Cabinet and councils will be reassured that about the approach that we're taking is responsible and reasonable and well judged, and we're not taking any risks like the previous administration have done. So very much welcome this report. Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? No? Got away with that then, Councillor Morris-Cook.
All the homework I've done on that. Thank you.
Got your recommendations?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find them. Okay. So, 2.1 is to note the Q1 forecast position for the General Fund, Housing Review Account, Dedicated Schools Grant, Capital, Asset Disposal and Divestment Programmes, and the capitalisation direction as presented in this report.
Agreed.
To approve 2.2 the following adjustments to the 2025-26 General Fund Capital Programme, showing the slippage of 8.441 million from 24-25 to be added to the 25-26 programme, overspends of 0.636 million in 24-25 to be funded from the 25-26 programme, the addition of schemes totalling 12.761 million, all funded by external grant, to be added to the 25-26 programme.
Agreed.
2.3 to the revised 2025-26 General Fund Capital Programme of 101.208 million to full council.
Agreed. Sorry. I was
Wake
reading
up,
it.
wake
No,
up.
I was reading.
2.4 to approve the following adjustments to the
I wasn't, I was,
25-26
yeah. I was on the
HRA
FX
capital
I've
programme.
seen
The slippage of 9.604 million from 24-25 is to be added to the 25-26 programme. Overspends of 1.274 million in 24-25 will be funded from the 25-26 programme. The addition of schemes totalling 3.423 million are all funded by external grants to be added to the 25-26 programme. 2.5 to recommend the revised 25-26 housing revenue account capital programme of 60.125 million to full council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morris-Keck. Right, item 18, asset disposal, retail parade disposal. Please note for the next report, appendices 3 to 7 are exempt, and I would therefore remind members and officers not to discuss the contents of the exempt appendices whilst we are live streaming the meeting. If anyone does wish to discuss the contents of the exempt appendix, we can go into a closed session and ask members of the public and press to leave. Councillor Cherry, would you like to ask the question? You're welcome. Oh, do I? Yeah. No, I know. Oh, sorry. You can sit there, but we've not got to. Sorry, because I just see your name. We'll come back to you in a minute. Because I should ask Councillor Morris to please introduce the item before you ask the question, so that she at least knows where you're coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go into this report, I think it's of the utmost importance that I make the following absolutely clear, and to say that the following is true. This is not a proposed sale for future demolition and development. The shops and the accommodation above it will stay as they are, as shops and homes. Is that absolutely clear? Perfect. Brilliant. The council is bringing forward a proposed disposal of the remaining 14 retail parades as part of the wider asset disposals programme, which supports the improvement and recovery plan and is vital to putting the council finances on a sustainable footing after they suffered under the stewardship of the previous Conservative leader, Councillor Gledhill. Any potential disposal must seek to improve the council's financial position without causing a significant decline in service delivery. In terms of the process, the disposals will go through a full and open market route. The intention is to use public auction, with the parades offered in multiple lots on long lease terms. This gives flexibility, a broad market approach, enabling smaller investors to bid. To protect the council's position, minimum reserve prices have been set for each lot. These are confidential for obvious reasons. The reserves have been benchmarked against the net present value of retention, ensuring that no disposal will proceed unless the receipt exceeds the revenue position. This competitive bidding, transparency, and has the best consideration is achieved in line with our statutory obligations. With there only being a 4.35% voids, which in the current market is seen as extremely tempting, as the current market is showing circa 13.6% in local shopping centres and parades. This comes from reports on the retail market for Q1. Any liability for business rate from current void properties would no longer be that of the council. I can confirm that detailed financial modelling has been carried out to compare the long-term income stream from retaining the current retail parades against the capital receipts expected from disposal. The modelling demonstrates that capital receipts significantly outweigh the value of retaining the income, particularly once you take into account reduced borrowing costs, lower interest rates, and the release of internal resources that are currently tied up managing the 145 tenancies. I can also confirm that the properties which are above the shops are not affected in any way. I can also confirm that each sale will be subject to existing commercial leases with the tenants and the tenants' rights maintained for the continuation of existing tenants and minimal disruption to the community.
You can now ask your question.
Thank you, Leader. It's probable that you may not be answered this question. I'll attempt it in any case. You intend to sell off a major Thurrock asset, our shops. What will you get for them? And will there be a full, open and transparent public process?
So, I think I've covered a lot of it, but I'll sort of go through it again if you want me to. It actually, whilst obviously any of our assets are important, it probably doesn't sit in the top 10 of the value of them within Thurrock. I've explained why I can't explain to you what we will get for them, which I'm sure that you will appreciate. And I think I've explained really clearly about there'll be a full and open, transparent process. But, you know, the only reason we're having to have this conversation is because of the reckless decisions that were made by previous administration that have left us in a financial crisis, and it now falls to us to put things right. 2 previous parades were actually sold last October and last December. There was a great deal of interest for them. Nobody has suffered any detrimental effect by having a change of ownership. They are on a 200-year lease. And as we said, there will be no change in their terms and conditions whilst the remaining tenancy agreement of the shops is in place. Does that make sense?
Do you have a supplementary? Okay, please ask.
These shops are opportunities for Thurrock residents to start a business, employ people locally, not have to travel long distances to find work and to run a business. The danger of selling these off is that a start-up business won't be able to afford a 200-year lease. People who will be...
Can I just interrupt you there, because you've got the wrong end of the stick here. Okay, what we're selling is the lease of the shops to somebody, I don't know, well, let me see, Mark Cooper comes along and is interested in buying one of the parade of shops, okay, as an investment. The fact we're putting them in small lots means that it's not just great big companies that are going to be in a position to purchase this. Okay, so Mark comes along and thinks, I'm really interested in buying this, because actually, do you know what? There's only a few voids there. 4.35% is like unbelievable, the number of empty shops that are there. It is going to be in Mark's interest to get, if he's unlucky enough to have a void in his parade, it'll be in his interest to actually get one of those, a new tenant into his shop, and he will then have a tenant agreement with them. We're selling 200-year leases off for the parades. It's not the people that are in the shops at the moment, unless they wish to all gang together and buy their own parade of shops. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Councillor Jerry, do you want to finish your question? Because you didn't actually get to finish it, Councillor Morris. So he might have got there on his own.
It was very helpful, your interjection, in any case. So that somewhat explains to people if they want to lease a shop to have a business, they won't be able to approach the council as they used to. They'll probably be dealing with a company that, if they buy the lease, you know, they're a business. They want to make a profit. So the cost of leases or the cost of rents will go up, which is going to affect a lot of our shops. Derwent Parade just recently, we lost a charity shop. They couldn't afford the rents. So there are
I
many.
have a question. Sorry, I know she interrupted you, but if you could get to your question, please. Thank you.
I will without any more interruptions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It is very important that people in Thurrock can have an opportunity to run a business. And my question will be, this is selling off the crown jewels of Thurrock to satisfy a debt that may be, could be satisfied in other ways, but it's going to actually cost a lot of Thurrock residents who want to be business owners a lot more money to
Is that a
start their
question?
business.
Can we get to it, please? Question. Thank you.
My question is it the right thing to do to be selling off these leases?
So, let me be clear. In your question about selling off the family silver, we are keeping the freehold, okay? So we keep ultimate ownership. And what we're doing is unlocking value from long leasehold interest to try and reduce the debt and stabilise the council's finances. When you were talking about pushing out local independent traders, if new landlords hike rents, tenants' leases remain legally protected. Whoever buys it is bound by the current terms, so businesses continue as before for the duration of their lease. And we aren't selling off things for a quick cash fix. These are commercial investment properties, not community centres. Tenants, as I've said, stay under the existing leases, so local shops will continue to serve their communities. What changes is who collects the rent, not whether the shops exist.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that answered your question, but you don't get a second supplementary, I'm afraid. You had a long statement in the middle as well, so you've done well. Thank you, Councillor Cherry. No, you're not allowed. No, sorry. Come back next month. Councillor Kent had a question for you.
I've not got a question, but I welcome this. I think we need to constantly be reminding ourselves of just where we are as an authority. You know, we are an authority that is functionally bankrupt. We are under statutory intervention, and we work to directions that were agreed back in 2022 with government, which included selling, what was it, £120 million worth of land and assets. That means having to take some really tough decisions. And I think what we're doing is going along, is pursuing that in a measured way. So we're not getting involved in some kind of fire sale. We're not actually selling off the family jewels. We're not selling those things that we really hold dear. Grange Waters, you know, we could go through those. But you know, as a council in intervention, if we're going to get through this, we need to have a laser-like focus on those things that local authorities are actually mandated to do. And that doesn't include running pubs. It doesn't include acting as landlords for shops. It doesn't include buying and trying to operate shopping centres. So actually divesting ourselves of those things not only brings in some money to pay down debt, and what is it, we pay 37% of our revenue budget on servicing debt, but actually allows us to concentrate on the things that we need to be concentrating on and delivering better services for our residents.
Councillor Morris.
Yes, thank you. And as I said, you know, it's quite the thing, and people are will be quite excited because it is very unusual to have shopping parades with such low voids, and it is going to be something that is going to be quite sought after. And I'm pleased that we're doing it in small groups because it allows smaller companies, or maybe some of the current tenants, to actually band together and purchase their own leases. So I'll move to the recommendations. 2.1, to approve the disposal of the council's long leased interest 200 years in the ground floor retail units of the 14 parades identified in Appendix 1, subject to the existing commercial leases.
Agreed.
2.2. Delegate authority to the Executive Director of Place in consultation with the Section 151 and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources to finalise terms and proceed with the disposal of each asset, ensuring best consideration is achieved. 2.3. To note the requirement to adjust the Council's medium-term financial strategy to reflect the annual loss of revenue from the disposals of any income-producing assets. That's it.
Thank you, everyone, and that concludes the business of the meeting this evening, and I now declare the meeting closed at 8:46, is it? Yes, thank you.